So good morning, everyone. Welcome to our daily shir. We're getting back to the weekly shir Bezrat Hashem here on Facebook Live and on our Zoom. Thank you once again to Raya and Mordechai Meltz for broadcasting this video. And Bezrat Hashem, it should be a healthy summer to all of us. We are starting now the summer. And it actually says in Hasidus, in certain places, that it's easier to serve Hashem during the summer because the sun is out. The sun is out and the sun represents the light of Hashem. So in a certain way, the light of Hashem shines here in the world, and it gives us the power, the strength, and the ability to connect to Hashem in a better way, in a deeper way, and even in an easier way. In an easier way, it means that it's not that we don't need to put in our own effort, but nevertheless, we get a bit of a push that Hashem helps us to start our day connecting to Him, if it's in davening, if it's in learning something, and in any other aspect, we have the powers that Hashem gives us, especially during these days. So our Parsha is Parsha Shemini, and it's a very, very interesting story about what happened in Parsha Shemini. Parsha Shemini tells us about Moshe Rabbeinu building the temple. He built the temple. It was the temporary temple. It wasn't the permanent one. It was the one that traveled along with them for 40 years when they were in the desert. And after that, when they entered Eretz Israel, the Mishkan traveled along with them for several more years until King David and King Solomon built the first temple. And apparently it wasn't such an easy thing building the Mishkan. Moshe Rabbeinu was the one to build the Mishkan. Other people could not help him. It was too hard. Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that basically built it with his powers. And there was a time when they were waiting there. They were waiting for Hashem to rest in the Mishkan. That's the whole purpose of building the Mishkan, right? It's not just a nice building. It's not just an interesting house that was made with a lot of gold and silver, but it was a place that Hashem rested there. And Am Yisrael, after the Mishkan was built, they were waiting. What was the sign? How did they know if Hashem rested there or not? The fire that came from heaven and burned the offerings on the Mizbeach, on the altar. So Am Yisrael are waiting there, and it's a day after another day, and it's not happening. The fire is not coming from heaven. They thought that probably something is wrong. They're doing something. They're doing something incorrect. Finally, after a few days, Hashem's fire rests on the altar, and it's a sign that Hashem is resting in the Mishkan. Right after that, the Torah tells us a very interesting story about the two sons of Aaron. Two sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu. Very special people. High tzaddikim, holy people. They were the sons of Aaron HaKohen, the great priest. And they decide to enter the Mishkan and to bring an offering for Hashem, to bring what we call the Ketores. The Ketores was a special kind of offering. It wasn't just an ordinary animal, but it was all kinds of spices, and it had a very unique and special smell, this Ketores. And they used to give it once a day. They used to bring the Ketores in. But these sons of Aaron decided to enter the Mishkan and to offer this towards Hashem, to Hashem. And Hashem didn't like it because it wasn't according to the book. It wasn't according to the way it was supposed to be. It was out of their own accord. They basically decided to bring it without consulting before. And we're going to see soon what exactly was the sin over there. But definitely Hashem was angry with what they did. How do we know that he was angry? Because they were punished. It says, Vateitzei eish, that same fire that showed that Hashem rests in the Mishkan, that fire went and killed the two sons of Aharon. That was a big, big punishment. The two famous tzaddikim, very special tzaddikim in that time, the sons of Aaron were killed because we'll see the reasons. But what it says in the pasuk is, Ki hikrivu eish zara, a foreign offering. They offered a foreign offering. Asher lo tziva Hashem osom, that Hashem did not command them to bring, and therefore they suffered from this punishment. Or as we know, it's not only a punishment, but it's a result. It's a result to what they did, and they were killed. They were killed by the same fire that they brought in to offer it to Hashem with that ketores, those special spices, and that Hashem was not happy with that. Therefore, they were killed. But we've got to understand here a few things. First of all, we've got to understand the power of tradition. We know that we just came out of Chag HaPesach. Chag HaPesach is a very unique Chag because throughout the year, we know that there are all kinds of kashruyot, right? All kinds of kashruyot, all kinds of levels. There are a lot of levels, and each one holds on a different level. And during Pesach, it's even more extreme, to the extent that people, even big Hasidim, did not eat at other people's houses. And we know that it's something that kids always ask, well, why don't we eat this? Why don't we eat that? It's all about tradition. It's all about what we had at home. That's what we used, and we passed that on to our children, and they passed it on to their children. And that's how today there are many things that might not be chametz, right? But nevertheless, we don't eat them. We don't eat them not because they aren't kosher. We don't eat them because we are extremely going according to the tradition. And the tradition means that, well, I saw that at my father's house, and without questions, I'm going to follow what he did and not going to change anything from that. This is specifically about Pesach, about Passover. And the other question that we're going to try and relate to is, what is it about the sons of Aaron? Well, if they are tzaddikim, if they were special people, holy people, then why were they punished? What wrong did they do? So Rashi brings two explanations to that. A very interesting explanation is the first explanation, that they basically did not consult with Moshe Rabbeinu, who was their rabbi. And because they did not consult with him, they basically decided the halacha without asking their rabbi. And this is something that has to do with tradition. Because if anyone would just come up with an halacha without consulting with his rabbi, with the previous generation, to see if it's acceptable or not, we will lose our tradition. The fact that the Jewish people and the Jewish tradition lasted for 3,333 years since leaving Egypt, right? That's the way that's the exact timeline that we track down between us leaving Egypt till this very day, 3,333 years. Without keeping the same tradition, we would not be over here. There's a famous story that Rabbi Lau always mentions about the first ship that came from Europe to the United States, the Mayflower. The Mayflower was a ship that contained many people that were sick of the culture of what happened in Europe at that time, where you were forced to go according to a specific religion, and they chased you to observe all these things. They wanted a bit more freedom to observe the way they understood things, and they left from Europe to the United States. Now, that was a moving moment, as we say. A moving moment is that it changed the lifestyle, it changed it for generations. But if you would go and approach a young child in the United States today, you would ask him, well, tell me, have you heard of the Mayflower? So probably if the majority of the children, especially people that don't study history or doesn't interest them, they would not know. Could be even adults that would not know what was the Mayflower, what time did it leave, what did they eat when they were on that ship, how long did the journey take. They would not know all of those answers. Why? Because they don't have the tradition. When we left Egypt, look how many details we know about that coincidence that happened 3,333 years ago. We know almost everything about it. We know that how it happened, what caused us to leave Egypt. Pharaoh chased us out, basically. He didn't want to die himself. All the firstborn were killed, and that was the thing that convinced him to set us free. We know that it was 40 years during the desert. We know what we ate, the man that came from heaven. We know what we drank. We know how long it took us to enter Eretz Israel. We know a lot about the journey, about what happened, about Bnei Israel complaining, about giving the Torah, which was the purpose of leaving Egypt. So, because the reason why we know all this, the reason why we connect to it, is because tradition is so important. Tradition is so important, and that's why during Pesach, yes, the kids will ask, well, since when is rice chametz? Is rice chametz? So the Ashkenazim don't eat that because it's kitniot. The Sephardim do. Because the Ashkenazim say, well, in our countries, they packed the rice in the same packages as they packed wheat. And we don't want to get confused. We don't want by mistake to bring home a packet of wheat. So that's why we don't even eat rice, although it's clear that it has nothing to do with chametz. And it gets even more and more extreme about products that were produced in factories that we don't necessarily eat. There are people that don't even use oil. They use schmaltz instead. So all of these things have a deep connection to tradition. And again, this was the sin of the sons of Aharon. The sons of Aharon basically did not consult with Moshe Rabbeinu, who was their rabbi. They did not consult with the previous generation. And therefore, because they did not consult with them, they were punished with such an extreme punishment or such an extreme result, and they were killed. So this is the first explanation that Rashi brings. Now, by the way, who gives this explanation? This is one of the Tanaim, Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer had a famous expression that he used to use from time to time. And he said that someone that does not, someone that says something without consulting with his rabbi, he causes the Shekhinah, the divine presence, to disappear. This was his expression that he used to tell people, and we can understand now why it was so important for him that the sons of Aaron should consult with Moshe. And in his eyes, this was the sin that caused them to die. Now, there's another explanation. It's also a very interesting explanation. I would like to mention another story that's connected to the tradition. And we use one of the simanim on the ka'ara, one of the plate that we have during the seder. We've got the egg. We've got karpas. So karpas is basically some kind of vegetable that we use. We dip it in salt water. Now, when we dip karpas in salt water, we use onion or we use a potato. You can choose or this or that. One year, one of the Admorim in Poland, he had several Hasidim that came over to him to celebrate the Chag. One of these Hasidim had basically a farm and he used to grow all kinds of vegetables. And he came to his Admor, he came to this Rebbe and he told him, I've got carrots for you. Look at these big, amazing, very tasty, special carrots. And I'm giving this to you to use for karpas. Instead of the onion, instead of the potato, use these carrots. They taste very good. They are big. This is something that's mechubad, and this is something that you should use for karpas. So the Admor said, thank you very much. He appreciated the chassid thinking of him and bringing him these carrots. And he said, well, you know what? Let's try it out. 10 minutes before after he left, this chassid went back home, and he goes back home, and he turns to the people that work there in the farm, and he tells them that my Admor liked these carrots. Tell me, how did you make them? What made them so special, so big, so tasty? And their answer was, they told me, you know what we used? We didn't water them with just plain water. We used beer, and the beer gave them the flavor. The beer gave them the taste, and it helped them to grow this big and beautiful. As that chassid heard that, he said, well, beer is chametz. Beer is made out of barley. That's chametz. We cannot use that on Pesach. And he did not know what to do. What is he gave his Admor, he gave his rabbi carrots that contain chametz. He immediately rushed back, and he was going, in those days it took a bit of time, I guess, and he came like really before candle lighting on the night of Pesach. And he comes to the Admor and he tells the Admor, don't use it, don't use it, don't use it. This is chametz. So the people around, so to do with me being able to see what happened in your house, but I go according to the tradition. The tradition is to use onion or potatoes. Carrots, I did not see my father using. He did not see his father using, and therefore I did not use it for the Pesach plate, because it's something that is not according to our tradition. So here we see the power of the tradition in that story, but I want to go towards the second answer. And the second answer teaches us about expectations. And again, the sons of Aharon basically entered the Mishkan, and they were offering this ktoiris, this special offering to Hashem. Hashem did not command them to do it. They came of their own accord. But the second explanation is all about what we expect of you. You're big tzaddikim. It's not just an ordinary person entering the king's room. B'kroivai kodesh. With the ones that are close to me, the ones that are connected to me, they should praise me the most. That is the idea behind this punishment that they receive. We expect, it's like the son of a king. You're the son of a king. We expect from you to check if what you're doing is right. That is the second explanation. But the truth is, so we asked at the beginning of the question, are they tzaddikim or not? Are they good people or are they bad people? And the question is, well, we could call them good or bad, but it's interesting because they are for sure good people. They're for sure righteous people. So how could they do such a thing? These are the sons of Aaron. How could they do such a thing, enter the Mishkan without Hashem permitting them, bringing an offering without Hashem allowing it, not according to what we are supposed to do? The truth is that they were so connected to Hashem that they could not control themselves. How do we know that? Because it says that they were drunk. They entered the Mishkan when they were drunk. And when we know drunk doesn't mean only technically drunk. It means nichnas yayin yotza soid. When wine comes in, secrets come out. That means that when the big tzaddikim, when they drink wine, they are happy. It gives them, they are more connected to Hashem. It's a way, it's a tool that they use to leave the body behind and to express their spirit, express their neshama in a deeper way, right? Wine and any kind of alcohol basically moves the consciousness to another side, and that's how we relax more, or the limitations of the body don't have such a strong place, and we feel a bit freer. So these two sons of Aaron, basically, what they felt is a deep connection to Hashem, and that's why they couldn't control themselves. They loved Hashem so much, and drinking the wine expressed the neshama of the Torah that they were learning. And that's why they couldn't control themselves. They just wanted to connect to Hashem more. Where's the best place to connect to Hashem? How do we connect to Hashem? So in those days, the best place was the Mishkan. And the best way was actually by bringing an offering, and such a special offering as the Ketores. But we know that we cannot only express our love and express our neshama. We've got to be practical. We've got to be with our legs down on the earth, because that's what Hashem wants from us. And that's why it was a sin. Because there's no kunz. It's not a good idea only to daven all day and not to be connected to the world at all. We daven in order for us to have the strength to survive here in the world with a connection to Hashem. But it's actually interesting because I spoke to someone at the Bet Chabad last night, and he asked me, well, when are you planning to go back to eating chametz? So I told him maybe not tonight, but tomorrow. And apparently there's such an Indian, and that's something that he told me, that Hasidim didn't rush into eating chametz, right? We know that there's something special about eating the matzah. So that's what we're going to try to keep on doing. But nevertheless, only for a certain amount of time during the year, we eat matzah. The rest of the year we eat chametz. Why? Because we are human beings. We have ego. That's the fact. We represent the bread that rises more than the matzah that's flat, because we are humans. We take the power of 7 days and we add a bit more at the end of the Chag, not eating chametz. That is something that gives us the power for the rest of the year, for the rest of our ego, that we are humans. What could we do about it? We have that's part of us. We have no choice, but what we could do is we could try and refine it. We could try and work on our ego. We can try and say, well, 7 days, I'm not going to put myself in the main place. I will be a bit more humble. That is the idea behind Pesach. That is the idea behind the story in our Parsha. So thank you once again for taking part in our shir, and I'm looking forward to Bezrat Hashem seeing you all next Sunday.